Alright guys, so I've had several questions from different people asking about doing the wireless remote slave flashes using the transmitter, the wireless transmitter, which is here, and the wireless receiver unit, which is here. And what I've came up with is really very simple to do. I've got my transmitter hacked with the trigger wires coming out of it, and I've also got the receiver hacked with the trigger wires coming out of it. Now you don't have to remove the batteries from inside the unit. You can power that with the AAA batteries just like normal and be able to put your back cover on there. And there's a couple different options for doing this. If you were going to have your camera operated with the Safari board, and you could use the flash backpacker as the flash unit or your flash control board, and then what you would need to do is, just like a normal slave flash, you would have the PT from the flash backpacker placed in front of your camera flash inside your build. Alright, and then the trigger wires from this transmitter would connect to the trigger wire locations on the flash backpacker. So that's really very simple. And I believe this transmitter operates on a 12 volt 1/2 AA battery, which I don't have. I'm powering it with a 12 volt SLA battery just for this demonstration. Okay, and then on the slave flash portion of your build, you would need the RCDavis SMT Slave Controller board, which I have here. Alright, and you would connect the trigger wires from this receiver board and the trigger wires from your slave flash into the trigger wire locations on the SMT Slave Controller board. Alright, and of course you would wire up your power supply. If you're using a 6 volt slave flash, you'd need a 6 volt power supply coming in to the SMT Slave Controller board, and then you would connect your slave flash positive and negative wires into the terminals marked as SL positive and SL negative. Okay, and this board comes with a PT, with phototransistor, and a CDS, which is the day-night sensor. And you don't need to use the PT to detect the slave flash firing. And as you can see here, I have it actually taped off with some black electrical tape so it doesn't detect the flash, just to show you that you don't need that. But you will need to place the CDS in a location where it can detect the day-night level, so that this slave controller board operates the slave flash as normal, meaning that during the daytime it would not apply power to the slave flash because it's not needed. That way it conserves your battery power. Okay, but during the nighttime it would need to know that it's night, so that it will refresh your slave flash capacitor and keep it topped off so that it's ready to fire when needed. Okay, but for this demonstration I have it taped off also, just so that the board thinks it's nighttime. Okay, and that's really basically all the wiring that there is to it. You don't even have to set the dip switches on the SMT board to match your camera flash, because all we're doing with this is just getting a signal from this transmitter to the trigger wire locations on the SMT Slave Controller board, and that automatically knows that the slave flash is fired, and it will immediately start to recharge the slave flash for the next time that the slave is needed. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to power on the Safari camera controller with the flash backpacker. Okay, and one thing you do need to remember too is on this receiver board, it's got a little switch on the front for on and off. Make sure you have it on. Alright, and then I'm going to power on the RCDavis SMT Slave Controller board. We're going to let all that go through the warm-up, and then I will activate the camera or the Safari board for it to turn the camera on and take a nighttime photo. And when the flash on the camera goes off, it will fire the slave flash, which is a totally separate unit here because we're doing wireless. So we're going to let these boards go through the warm-up, and I'm going to back you up just a little bit so that you can see everything here. Now I'm using a Vivitar 3700 slave flash, which I have on my breadboard here, and I use it for testing all the time. Alright, so my SMT board, slave controller board, is ready because once it detects or goes through the warm-up and it detects it as being night, the LED on it will flash one time every 5 seconds. If it was daytime, the LED would blink 2 times every 5 seconds, indicating that it's day and that we don't need the slave flash. Alright, so the Safari board over here should be ready, so I'm going to activate it. Okay, the camera's coming on. Took a photo, camera flash fired, our transmitter board sent a signal to our receiver board. Receiver board fired the slave, and our SMT slave controller board has recharged the flash immediately. Activate the Safari board, and once again the camera took a photo with the flash, and our slave flash fired. And I'll wait and do this a few times just to show you that it is continuously working. Like I said, we're not using the PT off of this SMT slave controller board to detect that slave flash has fired. We don't need to do that. So you could actually, you can either tape off the PT like I have it here, and just place it inside your build case, or you could, disconnect it completely from the board. It doesn't matter because we're not using that. Okay. Only thing you need is to wire up your trigger wires from this transmitter and the trigger wires from your slave flash into the trigger wire terminals on the SMT slave controller board, and use the CDS to detect the night level or the day level, whichever. Alright, so I've changed my batteries. The little AA's just weren't strong enough to keep that big capacitor for that 3700 slave flash topped off, and even these D cells I got aren't in that great condition. So anyway, I'm going to activate the camera. We'll get the slave flash to fire. Okay, now we're going to give it about 15 seconds or so for it to recharge. Then I'll activate the camera again. Like I said, we're not using the PT to detect the slave flash. So let's try this again. Alright, so slave flash fired again. Give it a little while. We'll activate it again. Alright, let's try it again. Alright. and we'll wait and do that one more time. Just wanting to, you know, kind of show you that this is working, even though my batteries aren't that strong for the slave flash. Alright, so should be ready now. Well, it didn't work that time, so my batteries just aren't that strong. There we go. Alright, so as you can see, the SMT Slave Controller board is recharging the slave after each time it fires, and I'm going to wait and do that one more time. I'm just going to give it a little bit longer this time to hopefully let that capacitor charge up before I activate it. Okay, let's see what happens now. Camera went off. Okay, so activate the camera again. Alright, so there you go. Slave flash is fired again. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the Safari board off and turn off slave controller board. Alright, so if you were going to be using, say, a different camera controller board in your camera build, such as the Game Watcher board that I have, or Gary's Bigfoot board, or Gary's SS2 board, any of that will work on your camera side. You would just need a second RCDavis Slave Controller board, you know, to operate, or to have over here, that you can connect this transmitter to, and you'd wire it up exactly the same. You just use the trigger wires from this transmitter into the trigger wire locations on the slave controller board on your camera side, and you would need the PT in front of the camera flash, but you would also need that CDS from the slave controller board on the camera side, so you could place it where it can detect the day-night level. Alright, and for baby slave, you know, 3 volt or 1.5 volt slave flashes, whenever you wire those up over here, you could use say either 3 AA's to power the SMT Slave Controller board, or you could use a 9 volt battery to power the SMT Slave Controller board, and then just wire up your baby slave or 3 volt slave flash the way that it would need to be wired, which would be putting your positive wire from your slave flash directly to your 1.5 or 3 volt power supply positive wire, and then the negative wire from your slave flash would connect to the SMT Slave Controller board at the location marked as SL negative. Okay, and if you're using a 1.5 volt or a 3 volt slave flash, on the bottom of this SMT Slave Controller board there's a jumper marked as JP1. JP1 is default, needs to be set as default if you're running a 6 volt slave flash. If you're going to be running a 3 volt or a 1.5 volt slave flash, you would need to disconnect jumper JP1, and what that does is it bypasses this 1 ohm 2 watt resistor that is on the board. That way your slave flash, your lower voltage slave flash, will continue to charge up as it should. If you leave JP1 on this SMT board set and you're using this lower voltage slave flash, then this large resistor is going to slow down the charging of those flashes, which will cause you to get some black pictures because your capacitor is not going to be charged up quick enough. Alright guys, so anyway, this is my solution to the wireless slave flashes. that a lot of guys were using Jim's board to activate the slave flash with this receiver board. I didn't get into doing the wireless stuff while Jim was providing those boards, simply because I didn't want to be moving in on something that he was doing already. But now that Jim is no longer with us, and I've had guys asking me about a solution to the wireless stuff, this is what I've come up with to still be able to do the wireless slave flashes. So anyway, guys, I hope I've explained this well enough. If not, anybody that's interested in this can contact me through my website or through email, and I can give you more details on it. Thanks for watching.